Welcome, everybody. It is so nice to see such a big audience. My name is Cara Levy, and I'm the marketing officer at Petco. Welcome to all of you. We have a large audience here today, and it just shows the great interest in the recycling space, which is very encouraging. So thank you for all of your time. Let's look at the agenda for the day. We have a jam-packed agenda for this morning. I'll first kick us off with a look at Petco and the PET industry in South Africa, and we will then I will then hand over to Najan Naidu from Smart Communities to discuss how to start recycling in your communities, and I will also speak about how you can start recycling at home. Then Anthea Fransman, who runs Recycle First, which is a recycling collection service, will speak from her experience about what you really can and cannot recycle. And then we will hear from Dione from Ocean Pledge about the results of a survey about how consumers feel about recycling and about greenwashing and how consumers can protect themselves from it. As Shane already mentioned, we will then have a Q&A, so please insert your questions into the Q&A box and we will get to them at the end of the session. To start off, a little bit of background about the PET plastic industry in South Africa and who Petco is and what we do. Petco is what's called a producer responsibility organization, also known as a PRO. A PRO is an organization that assumes the responsibilities of an obliged party as outlined in government regulations regarding the collection and recycling of products. As you can see here, there is a value chain that exists. Petco sees itself as a facilitation agency that facilitates the process of closing the loop and ensuring that no packaging leaks into the environment. Petco is a membership-based organization, and we are paid a membership fee by our members, who are brand owners, retailers, and importers who place more than 10 tons of PET packaging onto the South African market. And we then put various initiatives in place to ensure that their packaging is collected for recycling in South Africa. Our activities enable members to assume extended producer responsibility. So imagine in the past, a brand owner would have just put their products onto the shelf and then would have stepped away. But now, through paying us a membership fee, we ensure that their products are collected and recycled. And you may be wondering what an EPR system is. So in EPR systems, producers are responsible not only for health and safety issues associated with their products, but also for the management of packaging waste, including collection, sorting, and recycling. Essentially, this means that the producer must ensure that the products that they place on the market do not negatively affect the environment after consumer use, and therefore must ensure that whatever post-use treatment is appropriate actually occurs. So how do we do this? Between 70 and 80% of the Petco budget is spent assisting projects that support recyclers, or as we call them, reprocessors, where bottles are collected into pellets for new bottles or into fiber. These projects are required to deliver the tons allocated to them of PET recycled each year. Petco provides funding in support of these partners to ensure that their volume targets are met and that through adverse economic cycles, these programs are sustained. Our contracts with the recyclers give them confidence to also invest downstream in collector training, provision of baling machines, and support of SMMEs. An important part of the work that we do is training, mentorship, and sponsorship of equipment and infrastructure for the informal sector so that they can move up the value chain, grow their businesses, and create further employment while cleaning up the environment. And here you can see a trailer that we sponsored to Green Kid SA, and this will help them to increase their tonnages of PET and other recyclables collected. This map is indicative of the range and breadth of partnerships, funding, and business development nationally. It shows where Petco was active in 2021, and this is looking at the 5 months where lockdown didn't restrict travel. We were able to do the following. We did sponsorship of equipment and infrastructure for 250 projects. We identified collector development opportunities in conjunction with 40 municipalities. We provided COVID support. We provided cash flow assistance to kickstart collection after lockdown and transport subsidies to support rural, far-flung regions to get their recyclables to reprocessors. And We also conducted accredited business training to build SMMEs and basic collectors training workshops to introduce the opportunities in the value chain. And last but not least, my area of work, which is consumer education and awareness. Our campaign from last year, as you can see on the left, highlighted the value that collectors play in the recycling value chain. We aimed to destigmatize the negative connotation that many people have about collectors, encouraging them to engage with collectors where they live and separate their waste from their recyclable materials. We have also created, which you can see on the right, CAPS-aligned school resources in partnership with the Pick and Pay Schools Club, and these go out to 500 schools across the country. We have created resources for grade 1 to 3 and then 4 to 6, and we are doing grade 7 this year, and these resources are available on the Pick and Pay website and also on the Petco website. And I wanted to show you our latest campaign, which will be released in the coming weeks. We have made a mini documentary series consisting of 9 episodes. They feature all of our Petco award winners and follow the journey of someone who is discovering what goes on behind the scenes in recycling in SA. The series aims to inspire, to help grow the awareness of recycling as an economic enabler and as a powerful solution to one of modern society's greatest challenges, waste. So I wanted to show you the trailer and encourage you all to go and keep your eyes on our social media pages where we will be launching the first episode shortly. And all of the episodes will be available on our YouTube channel, which is PET if you want to go watch them. I highly encourage it.
People have got different opinions regarding waste, but the one to say waste is trash, it's outdated.
It's only trash when you throw it away.
The champions are those men and women on the ground picking up that PET material.
We are like a family. We actually care about each other.
Be the change you want to see in the world.
So, yeah, that is the first section. I also then just wanted to explain a little bit about what PET is. You've heard me mention it a lot. Sorry about that. PET is not the recycling of dogs or cats. PET is short for polyethylene terephthalate. It's quite a mouthful. It's a type of plastic that is used in the food and beverage sector for water and juice bottles and fruit punnets, tubs and trays, and in the household industry for things like soap and dishwashing liquid. And it's also used to make polyester, which many of you will be familiar with for things like clothing, duvet stuffing, and car mats. If you want to know if something is made of PET, you can have a look under the item and you'll be able to see the polymer identification code for PET, that is number 1. So you'll be able to see that logo over there. At Petco, we believe that it's critical to have a number of end-use markets. And this means products that need recycled PET as inputs. So when PET gets recycled, it can be turned into many new and useful things. The most circular end-use market is what we call bottle-to-bottle. So this means that when a bottle is recycled, it can be actually made back into a new bottle, keeping that material at its highest value and removing the need for totally new resources to make that product. And the key takeout here is that PET bottles can be recycled back into new bottles. Bottles need to be well designed, i.e. designed for recycling, in order for this to happen. So what we can recommend is that you, as a consumer, when you are choosing bottles, we recommend that you choose bottles that are clear or light blue, that have labels that come off easily and don't have their labels or information printed directly onto the bottle, and also that you avoid bottles with metal closures. So what does the landscape look like in South Africa? The biggest change to the packaging sector has certainly been the introduction of mandatory EPR on the 5th of May 2021. It's a positive step by the South African government to compel local producers to take responsibility for their post-consumer packaging waste. So what does this mean? It means that producers of paper, packaging, and some single-use products, lighting equipment, and electrical and electronic equipment were required by the 5th of November last year to join or develop and implement extended producer responsibility measures. The second defining element of the landscape is dwindling landfall airspace, looking specifically at the Western Cape, and thank you to Green Cape for this image. Most of the province is experiencing landfall airspace pressures. Of the 25 municipalities, you'll be able to see that 22 have less than 5 years of airspace left. This is expected to continue in the medium term. Pressures like these provide opportunities for municipalities to diversify their waste management models, as is particularly evident in Cape Town. We are also seeing increasing costs of disposal. So rising waste management costs are pushing up the price of landfilling. This increases demand from waste generators for alternative waste treatment solutions, which in turn improves the business case for these solutions. And in terms of sources of plastic material for recycling, it's interesting to see that almost 70.4% of plastic that is recycled is obtained from landfills and/or post-consumer sources. This highlights the importance of consumers and collectors in the recycling value chain in South Africa. Petco estimates that approximately 60% of our bottles come from the informal sector. However, despite the challenges, we are proud of what we achieved last year. This is the volume of bottles that were recycled in 2021. This is the same as filling more than 238 Olympic-sized swimming pools with bottles, keeping them out of landfill. That equated to 2.1 billion bottles collected for recycling. That's 5.72 million bottles collected every single day. And overall, 63% of PET packaging that was placed on the market by Petco members was collected for recycling in 2021. That represents a year-on-year increase of 6%. So now, how can you start recycling in your home or your community? Firstly, why should you recycle? So when we recycle, we reprocess materials to make new products. Recycling also conserves our natural resources, which are in short supply. So for example, when we recycle paper, we save forests and trees. When we recycle plastic, it saves landfill space and reduces the need for new plastic to be made. Most plastic comes from fossil fuel hydrocarbons. Recycling takes up less energy, which reduces our carbon footprint and emissions. Reducing our carbon footprint helps minimize methane release waste from landfill sites, which contributes to climate change. Recycling brings communities together and helps people raise money for schools, colleges, hospitals, and more. These recycling drives make towns and cities happier and cleaner. And recycling creates income opportunities every single year. So jobs in the recycling sector include sorters, drivers, mechanics, technicians, and more. And for the informal sector, recycling often creates income opportunities for these people. This is extremely important in South Africa, in a place where we are known to have issues with employment. So how can you start? What can you do at home or in your community? First, I would encourage you to understand the recycling systems that exist around you. There are certain materials which are not recyclable in South Africa, but also globally. And these are the reasons. So the first reason is that there might not be an end use for them. They can't be recycled into anything. As we say, recycle and do what? And that goes back to what I was talking about with bottle-to-bottle recycling, where you can recycle one bottle into a new bottle, and there's a demand for those pellets to be used to be made into a new bottle at the end of their life. Number two is that there might not be infrastructure physically in South Africa or in the area in which the materials are collected. And so what this means, and the biggest barrier here, is that fuel costs are the biggest barrier in getting the recyclables to the recycler. So for example, if I'm in Joburg and there's only certain infrastructure in somewhere in Mpumalanga, for example, it may not be worth it for me to drive to Mpumalanga. We all know how expensive fuel costs are. So it might not be worth it for me to drive there to sell the material, because it would just be not economically feasible. The third one is that the item is difficult to recycle. A global problem is, for example, multi-layer materials. So like a chip packet, it's made of plastic and aluminium laminated together. These two items are very difficult to separate for recycling. So pouches, chip packets, and chocolate wrappers are all currently going to landfill in South Africa and in most places in the world. But at the same time, they do a great job with serving their purpose for packaging. So they do a great job with, keeping chips fresh. Exactly. So you have to weigh up the difference between what the packaging is actually meant to do and how recyclable it is. The fourth option is that the item is so lightweight that a collector won't collect it, or it could fly off the back of a truck, which means it would land up in the environment. So how to start recycling at home? If you live in an area where you can recycle, these are the steps that you can take at home. Firstly, when you shop, choose items in packaging that shows that the packaging can be recycled. This can be in the form of a recycling symbol, which is a triangle created with that arrow at the back of packaging, and it will say on the packaging recyclable or not recyclable. I also just wanted to point out here that the chasing arrows, those 3 arrows with the little number 1 in it that I showed you earlier, is a polymer identification code. And just because it has that code on it, it's merely identifying the polymer. It doesn't mean necessarily that that item is recyclable. 2, the key to home recycling is your storage and bin setup. You'll need 1 bin for general household waste and then a bin or space where you can place your recycling bag. Or you can divide your current bin in 2. Place your normal household waste in one side and your recyclable waste in the other side. People ask if you need to rinse your recyclables. For things like milk and tuna cans, I would say yes, for the dignity of the collectors and sorters, but use leftover dishwashing water and put all your recyclables into a clear refuse bag or general household, general household waste goes into one black bag. And you can put it out for collectors, and there are many resources online that can show you where to recycle. So how to start a recycling scheme in your community. I'm going to hand over Najan to talk about this.
Thank you, Cara, for the opportunity to talk. So I'm from an organization called Smart Communities. We are currently based in Johannesburg, but we are planning to roll out nationally. Part of what Smart Communities is doing, we've identified a gap between the waste reclaimers and the communities. So we have put together a partnership with African Reclaimers Organization. And what we're tackling there is African Reclaimers Organization with ourselves identifies waste reclaimers that have set up camp in various communities. Communities typically contact us to say that they have waste reclaimers or squatters that are living on rivers or green spaces, and they want us to engage with them in order to A, help uplift them, and B, to integrate them into communities. So African Reclaimers Organization and ourselves will go into a squatter camp, meet with all of the residents there, find out who are the actual waste reclaimers. African Reclaimers Organization then starts a process of registering the waste reclaimers. And then we start cleaning up the actual camps. Part of Smart Communities, and why we call Smart Communities, we're actually responsible for the engagements with the formal residential communities themselves. So part of what we're doing there is educating the communities, forming relationships with community police forums, residents associations, other community forums, as well as the SAPS and the security companies. Part of the program there would then be to educate the households on who is located around them as far as waste reclaimers are concerned, to educate the households on how we can work with the waste reclaimers, and like Cara brought up, putting out the recyclables in a clear plastic bag. Arrow trains up the waste reclaimers on how to run their camps. They then help to allocate the waste reclaimers to specific communities. We then do introductions of the waste reclaimers to the community leaders, as well as the security companies and the CPF. The waste reclaimers are registered on the Department of Environmental Affairs database. They are issued with identity cards. So together with the identity cards, as well as the waste reclaimers, we then do a formal introduction to the community. We find out if there's any specific training that the waste reclaimers need in order to engage with the community, to respect the rules of the community. As part of the upliftment of the waste reclaimers, this is where Petco and ourselves have worked together with Arrow. We then make sure that the waste reclaimers are in proper uniforms or PPE, that they're provided with the right equipment in order to sort and process their waste. Once the program kicks off, we agree with the community on specific days that the waste reclaimers can come into the community between specific times. The security guards are then introduced to the waste reclaimers, and they have the right to search the waste reclaimers if there's any issues brought up by the community. Part of what Smart Communities is doing is also rolling out an mobile application into the community. So if community members find any issue with the waste reclaimers, they can quickly report the incident onto our application, and African Reclaimers Organization has direct access to that information. They then intervene with the specific waste reclaimer, do an intervention, make sure that the person is retrained, or if it's quite a serious issue, they'll then remove the waste reclaimer from that area and then try to improve how the waste reclaimer works if it's possible. The waste reclaimers then come into your community and then start the reclamation process. And the reason why we choose specific days and specific times, our main aim at Smart Communities is to ensure that every waste reclaimer can earn a decent domestic wage on a monthly basis. So that means from our estimates of 2.2 kgs worth of recyclables that come out of each household per week, that each waste reclaimer needs to service 70 to 100 households in each community. So we want to make sure that they can do that as quickly and efficiently and effectively as possible. Once the reclaimers have removed the waste from your community, we are then trying to work with the local governments association and municipalities to find formalized areas where the waste reclaimers can come and sort their waste in a safe and clean manner. They will then come out and sort their waste. And from there, they're able to then either go to buyback centers or work with some of our logistics capabilities to make sure the waste is then onward processed. You then typically take it to a consolidation center or to a buyback center where the waste is then converted into cash. The main exercise of what we're trying to do is to make waste valuable, make waste convenient in order to turn into money, and then to make sure that it's safe for the waste reclaimers to reclaim and sort their waste. Part of what we're trying to do is to make sure that waste reclaimers are not traveling great distances on our freeways and main roads where they don't have the right PPE or are traveling up to 30 kilometers a day in order to get to the right suburb where they can do reclamation. And this is part of our sortation exercise of smart communities, is to make sure that each waste reclaimer can process as much recyclables as possible in order to help prevent recyclables getting into landfill space and making sure that they can earn a decent living and more or less integrating them into our communities as essential service providers. Part of what we're doing as well, like you heard, we are working with the CPF, SAPS, as well as local security companies. Waste reclaimers are unrepresented. They have no way of keeping themselves safe. So as part of what they're doing as well, by introducing them to local security forces, if they are harassed by criminals or are being forced by the criminals to work as spotters in our communities, at the very least, they have ways of either reaching out to Smart Communities, African Reclaimers Organization, or even directly to the CPF and security guards where we have introduced them. Overall, once we have implemented our programs, we are going to be trying to encourage the waste reclaimers to take up formalized housing once they know that they're getting stable income. And this is part of the reason why we really are relying on sortation at source and with the residents allowing the reclaimers into their suburbs, so then we can make sure that each waste reclaimer can have a dignified living. And if there's any questions, feel free to post them onto the Q&A. And Cara, I'm not sure if I've covered everything. If there's anything specific you'd like me to discuss, I'm happy to do that now.
That was perfect. Thank you so much. Greatly appreciated, and well done on and well done like on the work that you do. It's very inspiring. So I am going to now I've got 3 minutes left, so I'm going to quickly play this video and then I'm going to hand over to Anthea. So I just wanted to share this video to illustrate the Petco award winners from 2021. This is for the Recycling Partnership Game Changer Award. and it showed the partnership between Arrow and the Bordeaux Residents Association. So hopefully this will inspire you to do the same in your communities, as Najin spoke about. Enjoy.
A few years ago, we had complaints from some of our residents about people that were living on the river. So I started exploring who was actually living at the river and why they were living at the river, and discovered that some of the people there were reclaimers.
A reclaimer is someone that goes to collect recyclable, reusable, and anything that actually has value that people dispose.
I then found out about African Reclaimers Organization. We arranged a meeting with Arrow and our Residents Association and explained what the partnership might look like. And everybody agreed that this would be something good to try.
After meeting the team at Aero, I think everyone was very excited about partnering with them. They very quickly integrated themselves into the community and got to know people.
This partnership with Arrow and the Reclaimers in Bordeaux provided a very easy opportunity for people to start recycling. All it requires of them is to separate their materials at source and put it out on a Tuesday morning. The reclaimers then come, they work through the bag of materials, they take what's useful for them, and then in fact they collate all the remaining material into bag for further sorting for potential recycling.
Bordeaux has made the system of collecting much more simpler, much more safer, and much more hygiene.
One of the other components of this partnership has been working with the Reclaimers and Arrow to run education and awareness sessions. So if we have park days, the Arrow team come and actually talk about the work that they do. We've also organized events with a school in the area to talk to the children about why recycling is important and the role that the reclaimers play.
We are able to engage with them and tell them, this is recyclable, this is not recyclable.
So I think it's made people more aware of their own consumption, what actually happens to our material that we just consume, and who really is doing something about this.
What this has done is made the recycling process so simple. I've always wanted to properly recycle, and this has just made it so unbelievably practical.
Petco have been an immensely important part of this partnership. They've helped us initially with all of the recycling bags that we used in the first phase of the program. Petco have donated the bins, which we really see as a sustainable solution for running our recycling programs, and the partnership with Arrow and the Reclaimers.
One of Aero's main goals is to give them the confidence and the dignity to do their work.
I normally say to the residents, we're human beings, we're not beggars, we are not here to steal. We are just doing a fair living so that our kids can grow and have a better future.
Dikelello tsa bahae di tšhentšhile la fela go bonahala gore go na le dikele tse ding tse ntseng di re sitisa a kgona go tloga ka nqela ka jarateng ena a yong ka ntho tse re di behetsweng ka saeteng le re ka mona ke yona ntho batlang eo.
The amount of awareness and awakenings that happened when you started to realize the role that informal reclaimers play in the economy and what they do for waste is huge. So I think on so many levels, this partnership has just kind of opened the eyes of so many in the community.
That's what happens when you've engaged, because it's a collective effort.
And that is it from me. Thank you very much for listening, and over to you, Anthea.
Thank you, Cara. Well done, Arrow. You guys are doing amazing work. Hi, Petco members. Hi, colleagues. Hi, industry colleagues and consumers. I am Anthea Fransman, and I'm the founder of Recycle First. And I founded Recycle First in 2009. So we've been 13 years of collecting, recycling, collecting from homes, apartment complexes, commercial buildings, and factories. And we had very humble beginnings. When we started, I used my TT, which was my Toyota Taz, and it was soon traded in for the Bantam Bucky you see on your screen now. And we sorted in a storage garage when we first started. And I was very naive, actually quite green to business on a whole, let alone green to recycling. But I was excited. But I was soon stopped in my tracks. You see, I made huge blunders. I didn't want to throw anything away. And so after all, it had that recycling symbol that Cara showed us, the one with the 3 arrows in the triangle. And surely if it had that, it would be recyclable. And so thinking that everything that had that symbol was recyclable, I stored it, and I thought it was just a matter of time where I located the buyer for this material, and the buyer was out there and I would find him somewhere, sometime. But I was eventually devastated to hear that many of the items, many of the recycling that I had been collecting for weeks, for months, were in fact going to end up on the landfill. And they actually weren't being recycled in Cape Town or anywhere in South Africa. And so that was our humble beginnings. Fast forward to 2022. We now collect from more than 1,000 customers. Some customers have numerous sites. We have 5 trucks on the road and 1,200 square meter facility and a growing staff complement. But the interesting thing is that last year we processed 824,000 kilograms of waste, of which 90% was recycled, but 10% went to landfill. Bearing note that was a reduction of 4% from the previous year. However, that figure looks pretty good, but please note that we collect recycling only, and therefore we have education and awareness programs with our customers, and we send sorters and do training to larger companies to ensure that we don't get the non-recyclables. So in the bigger scheme of things, this is not a big number, but I'll let you consider one of the buildings that we are recycling for. And this is the scenario that might be a little bit more comparable with your business, with your office, with your household. I'm missing a slide. So this particular site that we have been assisting, they don't have much separation at source. So separation at source this means that they're using one bin for their apartments or their offices or communal areas and restaurants. They don't have a bin for food waste, recycling, and general waste. And the stats collected over a 6-month period show that of the 27 tons recorded, that's 27 tons in 6 months, 42% was recycled, and 58%, which is 16.3 tons, went to landfill. And this is really a horrible recycling rate. So the challenge is, what can we do to increase the recycling, and what is actually the problem? What ended up in landfill? And so to figure this out, we needed to understand what was in the bin. So 49% of the building waste was food, and the other 51% was non-recyclables. So if you consider that in your home or your business that this could be a similar scenario, then the following info might be helpful for you. So we're going to go over some challenging packaging types. And the first challenging packaging type is what you see on your screen now. It's this packaging that now comes with your electronics or any equipment or appliances, which is very low grade paper. And the same year with your egg trays. We're finding it more and more difficult to find buyers for egg trays. I've even gone to the extent of looking for other ways to actually recycle this. And then clothing. So this is actually a pillowcase. And carpets, we get quite a bit of carpets. So these are things that we get in the recycling and that we even get in this building that are a bit hard to recycle. And I'm not sure if you knew that. Other things that are hard to recycle are multi-layered plastics, like your washing powder bags, also dog and cat food bags like this, apologies heels. And then a lot of beauty products that come in a tube. These are quite difficult to recycle, to find buyers for. This on the right, upper right, is a PET cup, but the PET cups are not currently being recycled at the moment. So this does pose quite a challenge. Oh, there it is. So this was just from the building. The green represents how much was recycled, and the red represents how much went to landfill. And then we did a further split to show that this red line got then almost halved when you exclude food waste, which doesn't need to go to landfill. It can go to a composter, which then reduces waste to landfill. So these are your coffee capsules, and despite the fact that there's the fact that there's coffee grounds in it, these are made of aluminium, and these are really, really valuable to recycle. But it's best to actually get the coffee out first. So if you can break through the foam on top and actually get that coffee out, the coffee can go to the composter, and then the aluminium can be gone to the metal, to SA metal or waste, SA metal or metal reclaimers to recycle. These are also really difficult to recycle. They are not recyclable at the moment, but we have faith that the industry are looking for solutions on how to recycle these. So polystyrene is something that people have got a big misconception about. So polystyrene in Cape Town is very recyclable, or it's highly recyclable. There's 2 or 3 companies that actually take polystyrene, but these lids can be a bit problematic. So these are your coffee cup lids on the right-hand side. These are high-impact polystyrene, or called HIPs. So these are not currently recycled, but you'll notice that there's been a lot of big change from this to your paper coffee cup lids. And that can also go in the composter or with the food waste, or it can go with what we call common mix waste grade within the paper sector. So here are your coffee cups. This is with a lid. These coffee cups are now recyclable. They have been for quite some time. I just like to point out that, and maybe this is something you didn't know, so they are recyclable, but we are getting almost no money when we do send this to the recycler or the buyer. In fact, at this moment, I'm getting R0 for taking this to the buyer that actually does recycle it. And whether that be for transport costs or just low demand for it because there's there's too much in the market. These eco cups can actually also go to the composter, but also note that these compost cups become a cost to your recycling collector. So if your recycling collector is not going to be interested in paying for this to go to a composter, because we have to pay a gate fee when things get composted because of their processing requirements, then this might not be collected by your household or even your business recycler. And on that note, then it's just important to check with your recycler whether or not he does or she does take which products. So this is what you call multi-layered plastics. These are also not recyclable at the moment. On the left is your refillable bag, and in the middle is a pharmaceutical tablet holder, which is foil and plastic, and then on the right is your washing powder bag. In addition to this are also your noisy plastics like cellophane bags, the ones that cover your flowers. Those are also not recyclable at the moment. And then we also have things like chips packets, sweet packets, metallic gift bags that are very difficult to recycle. So if you consider all these things in your normal household, it does end up looking like a lot of recycling that is actually still, or a lot of waste, that is still not being able to be recycled. This is a new product, or fairly new product. This is your fruit and veg bags. It's got your highly recyclable, on the right-hand side of the bag, you'll see a highly recyclable clear plastic bag with some writing on it. But on the left-hand side is a nylon net. And this nylon net makes the whole bag non-recyclable. And we've tried to cut the nylon bag out, but it's far too time-consuming to actually do this. And so these are now going into the landfill or going into our waste bin. These are, we're actually not sure what package, what code plastic this Kinder Joy thing is, sorry, Kinder Joy. And then this tube with some chips comes in is double layered. So it's got cardboard and foil. And it's a multi-layered paper product, which makes it hard to recycle. This is a yogurt container. This is also considered to be high impact polystyrene. Kudos to this brand though. This particular brand have made some significant changes to the bigger, larger volume products to make them more recyclable. But most brands that have these single serving trays or yogurt trays are all not recyclable, most of them. When you turn over onto the side or the bottom, it will say PS or code 6, which signifies it's polystyrene. But because it's the hard polystyrene, it's very difficult to recycle. An interesting point here is that if it's got additional plastic on it or a paper covering, that makes it even more difficult to recycle. So this is something new that's coming to our warehouse, fairly new. This is a colored bottle. So the bottle is actually yellow, and most PET collectors prefer clear bottles or the green and brown. And we found that they don't want to take the different multicolored bottles. So this also ends up in landfill. These are currently being recycled, but one of the things that we love you to do when it comes to oil-based products and food products is that you give it a good rinse out, because peanut butter, oil, tomato sauce is all oil-based sources or all oil-based, and this can actually have a detrimental effect on the recycling process. So we are recycling these, but very minimal of it. And from time to time, the collectors or the buyers will say, okay, we're not taking this anymore, or they will they might reject some loads, or I have had some loads rejected. The shopping bag. So the shopping bag is, most shopping bags are now recycled, but the big reason why some shopping bags are not recyclable is because they add a chalk content into the bag. And when they add that chalk content, it actually makes the bag less recyclable. Or the LDPE, which is low density poly, will say no, they don't want the shopping bags. But we do manage to get a few of them in between, but that does actually hurt the recycling process. So challenges in the industry. So we've had a rough 2 years. Before we go there, apologies. So let's just take you here again. So other items that your recycling collectors may not collect due to poor price of the recycling, either it's a R0, like I've just mentioned, or recycling that would cost money to dispose of, and I have mentioned this already, is your Tetra Pak cartons or your milk cartons and juice cartons, coffee cups, eco cups, and biodegradable packaging. So these have very low price value, and this makes it a challenging packaging type. At Recycle First, we charge for our collections. This charging for the service helps us do the right thing. So whether we're getting 0 Rand or 10 cents or 20 cents for a material, we're going to still make sure that it gets recycled, because that is doing the right thing. And so when you pay for a service, as you do when you join Recycle First, some of that money goes to help make sure that everything that we can possibly recycle gets recycled. So back to our site, our building that we're recycling with, to reduce the waste to landfill, we looked at the larger tenants that were what they were throwing away and what was going to landfill. And we tried to find alternatives for them to purchase. So, for example, where fresh produce came in the mixed plastic bag of nylon and LDPE, we tried to help them source fresh produce that came in a box, rather, or came from a local market. We've got them to put the egg trays with the food waste. And then we also looked for ways to reduce contamination. So we looked, for example, in the restaurant, how can they separate the food from the recycling or from the other packaging waste. And when we reduce the contamination, we were able to increase the recycling rates. I'd also like to just talk to you about what is then the most valuable or the top things that recyclers would like to recycle. What is the most valuable recyclables? So at the moment, and this is in no particular order, PET clear bottles, the clear bottles, not brown, green, or other colors. Polypropylene, which is your code 5 plastics, which is your margarine containers, your big yogurt containers, and then your HDPE, which is code 2 plastics. That is a lot of milk bottles and some of your Tupperware containers. Those are highly sought after plastics. Next would also be soft plastic, which is your LDPE, which is your bubble wrap, your clear bags, your courier bags, and some of your shopper bags. So, for example, your clothing. Yes.
Sorry, I'm going to need you to start wrapping, please.
Sure.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
No problem. So so we love it when you leave the caps on the bottles. So we use a conveyor belt, and the bottle top sometimes slips through and end up in the bag that goes to for waste. So when you leave the caps on the bottles, we appreciate that. All of our sort is sort by hand, and so we appreciate things when you rinse things that would be smelly. So not just our stuff, but most of South Africa's waste sorters work by hand. So tuna tins, milk products, sauce bottles, mayonnaise, if that's rinsed, it really does help with smells down the line. And get to know what your collector does and doesn't recycle, and look for brands that use the products that are recyclable. Another great thing that we love to hear is that when you find your favorite brand is not recyclable or that packaging, email them and ask them what are they doing to ensure that their product's packaging or the product itself gets recycled. One of the big things that I always wish consumers knew about recycling is that to recycle is such a great heart experience. But for the business, the margins are very, very tiny. And so we get money for the recycling, and then people ask, well, why should we charge to collect if you are getting money? So the money we receive depends on how much recyclables we are collecting, and it may not cover all the costs to run a business that is compliant with legislation, that is compliant with health and safety. So that a company that is collecting perhaps only paper or only PET, due to the less sorting required, will be able to reduce collection costs. But you might have companies that are making more money than others, but are those people looking after the health and safety of their staff as well? So please consider the cost as going to help keep a business operationally sound. We sort more than 26 different categories of materials, and it takes time. So when you do separate that source, keep plastics together, the glass together, that's actually really, really helpful. Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk to you, and I'll answer any other questions you have in the Q&A session.
Thank you so much, Anthea. So interesting. As always, I learn something new from you every time I speak to you. So thank you very much. And Dione, can you please take the stage?
Okay, great. So thank you very much for everybody who's come onto the panel today and Petco for hosting. So what I'm going to be showing you today is a bit of a snapshot into the South African consumer and where we are when it comes to recycling and positive plastic behaviors. This is a study that we did earlier on in the year for Plastic Pact. It was funded by WWF and by the Swedish government. And the work was conducted by Mesh Research, and over to you. So what we found initially is that people in South Africa today are bombarded by all this information around plastic. It's coming from so many different sources. It's all over the social media. It's on Netflix. It's on our National Geographic documentary channels. There's Greta Thunberg, David Attenborough. And what's happening is while it's raising a lot of awareness, people are also starting to feel quite overwhelmed and desensitized. And there's all these high-level messages coming about the perils of single-use plastic, but people don't always understand fact from fiction. So what we found in this particular study that we appealed to over 2,000 consumers in South Africa, we did research on their attitudes as well as their behaviors. And we found that on an attitudinal level, most people really want to do something about their single-use plastic behavior. So that's really encouraging. Only 6% said that they were not interested or they had other things that they needed to think about. Also, as far as behaviors go, there was a positive shift. So there's a lot of people that are doing something like bringing their own recyclable shopping bags or reusing them, even though the majority say they could get better at that. A lot of people, 51%, are saying that they refuse single-use plastic cutlery at restaurants and straws. But where we did find that there was a disconnect is that sometimes people's attitudes and their behaviors didn't really overlap. So there's a very small group of people who have positive attitudes and align this with their behaviors all the time. What we found mostly is that there were these positive attitudes, but the behavior didn't necessarily match up. So, or people said that they weren't really too worried about plastic, but they then displayed positive plastic behaviors. So it was like a little bit of a continuum there where there was a lack of clarity, and there's a good reason for it. And that is, we know that consumers feel guilt and shame for their role in the plastic conundrum. And this is because there's been a big plastic lobby of late, which makes it very hard for people to admit that they're not recycling or that they don't have any other good single-use plastic behaviors. So while many are trying to make changes, they often delude themselves about these changes, kind of overestimating their small behaviors, exaggerating and overclaiming to make themselves feel less guilty. We asked people, these 2,000 consumers, do you separate your waste into general waste and recycling waste at home? And we were quite impressed that 70% said that they do. It is important, though, to understand with this high figure that we understand this in conjunction with the definition of recycling, because this definition varies a little bit. A lot of people are separating this waste with the intention of upcycling and repurposing their plastic. And we find this is largely the case in households that earn under 30,000 Rand a month. So when we look at these definitions of recycling, we find that separating waste from recyclables becomes more entrenched as the household income goes up. And this is probably because these households have got additional resources to employ recycling services. But we also find that this definition takes place in households whose combined income is under 10,000 Rand. And that is because it is used as a way to acquire passive income. And also people are using it to help create jobs for the informal waste sector, backing into the belief that waste can indeed create some employment. I just want to check if this video is working.
Live in Mfuleni, down there near Belva. We also do recycling in our location because we saw like plastic, they cause a lot of damages to the sewage, They broke our sewage system, so I decided to recycle. I saw one guy was scratching in my bin, so I said to him, don't worry, I'll do that for you. So as to my house, I separate plastic on its own and bottles on its own. So every Thursday in the morning, that guy will come and collect. He just found everything on top of my bin. Thank you. Hi, my name is Cecilia.
Sorry. Okay, so our research really tried to identify what are the key barriers that are standing in the way of consumers reducing their day-to-day plastic use. And what we found is on an individual level, people have busy lives. So these barriers, by the way, feed into very strong consumer needs. So there's a strong need for convenience. And we see this as shoppers go shopping, they reach out for what's easy, for what's accessible, for what's fast and convenient. And forgetting to bring their own bags or bringing their own anything for that matter is one of the greatest barriers. When it comes to recycling, the lack of perceived space, the lack of recycling infrastructure, not necessarily having the money or the know-how makes recycling in the minds of many seem rather inconvenient.
I must be honest, I haven't really started recycling at home, here and there a bit. But finding plastic-free alternatives often feels like it requires to be a full-time job, and it's difficult and very time-consuming, especially us that work every day full-time and still have to get home and feed your husband and feed your kids.
Added to that, consumers these days feel very financially stretched. Cost saving is one of the things that are top of mind. There's high inflation rates, petrol and food is going up all the time. When consumers think of greener alternatives, they often imagine this comes with an increased price tag, and consumers don't necessarily want to pay more. Currently, amongst the masses, there's not really a perceived motivation or benefits to reduce or to recycle or to reuse, as this lady told us.
The times we're living in now, especially with this COVID pandemic, fortunately me and my husband haven't lost jobs, but things have gone up, things are expensive, so people are looking for to save money, not to save the environment, if I can put it like that. But if the retailers and manufacturers can find a way to have saving the environment be a bit more saving money on the pocket, it can actually work. It will actually work hand in hand, and people would go more towards eco-friendly products if things were actually reasonably priced. When you actually check the product packaging, is it recyclable, is it eco-friendly, so forth. Some people base their things on buying that, but I will check that, but if the price isn't right, I'm not going to buy it. Unfortunately, that is not my priority when I do go and shop.
So from an industry perspective, consumers say that there are hardly any plastic alternatives. They go to the shop and everything they see is plastic. And they say, what else do we do? How else are we going to weigh our fruit? So they don't necessarily see the alternatives. Moreover, even the most well-intentioned of our consumers, when they are faced with plastic that is cheap, that is easily accessible, and that is free, they often engage in behaviors that they otherwise wouldn't. There's also a large amount of confusion. So as I mentioned up front, awareness is becoming really high, but the practical knowledge is low. It's very hard for consumers to decode all of these symbols, and they don't necessarily understand or see their role in the plastic value chain when it comes to contributing to success. There's a lot of misinformation, and combined with this lack of knowledge and the guilt that they have and the overclaim, there's a great susceptibility to greenwashing, which I'll speak about just now.
I think plastics are durable, they are user-friendly, recyclable, but just complicated to translate, especially for the end user. I wouldn't know what the symbols and signs at the bottom of plastics are. Yeah, in my understanding it's plastic, but now it's got these symbols at the top. I'm not sure if you can see them. So one looks like a glass and so on, but I do not know what that means. Things like this. We don't understand these symbols, but you feel it, you squeeze it, and okay, it feels durable. I can recycle this.
Okay, so there you can see the typical amount of confusion. Consumers don't know what can and what can't be recycled, especially when it comes to the chip packets, the multifoil, as Anthea pointed out, the polystyrene, different colors of plastic, what's compostable. So what happens is, as we saw with the man that just spoke to us, consumers make these broad and uneducated guesses about what they think can go into the recycling, and then they assume that the collectors and the recyclers are going to take on the onus of separating it when it gets to source. Somebody else is going to take the responsibility. There's also a lot of confusion around the definitions that people see on packaging. When it says biodegradable and PLA and bio and earth friendly, on one side, it makes them feel better about their purchases, but on the other side, they don't know what to do with these products after they've used it. And all it really does is adds to that plastic noise and the confusion. And then there is the world of symbols and on-pack labeling. As Anthea pointed out, that Mobius loop, that green arrow, everybody sees that and they think, oh, wow, this can be recycled. People don't know the difference between the different resin codes, and they look at this and they mistake it for recycling when there are images such as the bin and don't bin it. Because it doesn't come with clear instructions, most people don't know what to do. While color is a little bit of an aid, again, unless there is clear, actionable instructions added to the color, there is a lot of confusion. And on top of that all, the legibility, it's often relegated to the back of pack in tiny writing that I know that my eyes also can't see. So in a study that we did 2 years ago, a similar study for WWF on almost 2,000 consumers, we asked them, what are the meaning of these resin codes? And of all these consumers, only 15% came back saying they knew what the resin codes meant. When we asked that 15% what it meant, only half of them were able to claim that the number refers to a type of plastic. The rest thought that the number meant how many times you can recycle or how many times you can reuse the product even. So how many people actually look at the back of their products to see whether it can be recycled or not? And in our study, only 25% claimed to ever consult the back of the pack, with 34% saying that they seldom, if ever, look at the on-pack recycling labels. And while things like 35% recycled is coming across quite positively and most consumers understand what it means, there's still a little bit of confusion amongst consumers as to whether this is safe for food or not. So there are things that consumers can do to empower themselves. And Anthea, thanks for taking us through that. Those are very valuable things, like putting a sticker on your bin or on your fridge so that you're able to understand the difference between the problematic versus the recycled packaging. Not being too quick to look at claims without trying to understand their substantiation, and being careful of signs and symbols that are used to sometimes mislead us. So just as a little bit of a summary to that, as soon as consumers enter the retail environment, we find that there's this big disconnect. While they have this awareness at the one hand, they've got all these things going on in their lives and all these barriers, which means that making conscious decisions inside a store just is not top of mind. So what they do is they look to the retailers and the brand owners to provide solutions to alleviate their own guilt. They reach up and they clutch onto any pro-environmental messaging. And this brings us to our section on greenwashing. So in this era that consumers are riddled with guilt, some brands are unfortunately looking to take advantage of this. So according to the Cambridge Dictionary definition, greenwashing is making people believe that your company is doing more to protect the environment than it really is, or that it is caring more about the environment when in fact it isn't. And unfortunately, environmentalism is in. So the practice of trying to green the company along with all of its products is something in this high-stake environment that companies are using all kinds of methods to disguise their products as being more environmentally friendly than they are, of course, so that they can sell more. And this is really quite prolific. In a 2017 study that was done, over 50,000 household items were researched, and it was found that more than 95% of them had problematic green claims. I also need to bring to your attention that not everyone does this on purpose. There's a lot of misinformation, even amongst company owners, and a lack of follow through. So it's not always like they are doing that to mislead you on purpose. However, sadly, in South Africa, there's also no regulation to combat these claims. So while we have the Advertising Standards Authority and the Consumer Protection Act, there's not much they can do around these green claims. So it does a little bit get put on the onus of the consumer. I just want to point out 7 of the greenwashing sins, because in doing this, it'll bring to mind how this kind of greenwashing happens. So number 1 is the sin of no proof. This often happens in beauty products and in cleaning products, where they might say animal anti-cruelty or all natural, but they don't necessarily give an substantiation or proof of what they're doing. Then there's the sin of vagueness. A perfect example is that recycling loop that has got no number in it. So what are they trying to say here? Are they recycling everything? Does it mean the whole product? Is it the packaging that they are talking about? What do we do after we've used the product? It's all unclear. And the sin of irreverence is products like sprays that are saying that they are not using CFCs, for example, but it doesn't really help because we all know that CFCs have been banned a long time ago. Then there is the sin of lying or fibbing. This is when brands blatantly lie about the product. So they might say animal anti-cruelty when in fact they haven't done any testing at all. The sin of the hidden trade-off is a good example would be clothing brands. We all know that clothing brands are responsible for chemical pollution, for bad employment conditions, for, there's so much waste and greenhouse gas emissions, but then they hide behind it by bringing a range of clothing that is environmentally conscious or made from reused plastic. So it's always important to understand the bigger picture there. Worshipping false labels is badges and certificates and labels that are awarded without actually meaning anything. Some of these companies actually award themselves these brands. And then we have the lesser of two evils. So it might be true what they're talking about, but they're distracting the consumer from the actual evil at hand. I've used an example there of biodiesel. It doesn't matter what fuel there is. It is damaging to the environment. So they're trying to hide behind the lesser of two evils. So what are the impacts of greenwashing on consumers? Unfortunately, it redirects the well-intentioned purchase power of a consumer that really wants to do right for the environment. And then what happens is the environmental damage continues and both the consumer as well as the issue gets confused. And unfortunately, the genuinely sustainable companies suffer as consumers start losing faith in the green movement and losing faith in green products. It's important for companies who are greenwashing to know that if they are found out, it does create irreversible damage and harm. So while for the cause, it's a bit of a step forward because it's all about being environmentally friendly, for the actual environment, it's 2 steps back. So what are some of the greenwashing signs to look out for? Number 1 red flag, idyllic images. When you see those beautiful waterfalls and tropical meadows and grass and oceans and muted tones or that cardboard look, watch out. Another thing, unsubstantiated claims and buzzwords. As we've spoken about already, the bio, the PLA, the compostable, absolutely fantastic. But how do we prove what they say? How do they actually justify and substantiate this? Watch out for products that have won awards. As we can see over here on the left-hand side, there's many misleading labels. But in South Africa, and in South Africa especially, there's not many that you can trust, but there are a few, both international and South African labels that do put their money where their mouth is. This is a great example of how people use a green paintbrush to make their brand look more environmentally friendly when we all know it's not. So what is it then that consumers can do? Firstly, when you look at the packaging, examine it. What are they saying that is green about this product? Is it the packaging? Is it the product itself? Question the whole product. How do you think it's made? What are we supposed to do with this product after it's been discarded? Read between the labels. So check the wording on the packaging carefully. If claims are made that it's better for the environment, try and understand how exactly it is better for the environment. Use your common sense. Some companies make green claims when you know blatantly well that they are damaging the environment. Always be skeptical. So, for example, if anything is designed to be single use, the warning bell should go off. And if it looks like plastic and it acts like plastic, treat it like plastic. Then there's another thing, ask for evidence. If you're not sure, go to the website, see if you can see anything, and then ask them. I like what Anthea said, go send them an email, ask them about their packaging. And if they are skirting around the issue or they don't answer you, good sign of greenwashing. And trust your instincts. Your instincts always know. In South Africa, we have many brands that are actually doing the right thing, and they are built on a good, solid ethos. These are just some of them. So we have Faithful to Nature, one of the largest online growing stores that are meticulous about screening out for chemicals and for organic and for plastic. We have Back to Nature, an amazing local Capetonian brand that offers shampoos and body products and baby products that are all based on no harmful or synthetic ingredients and sold in tins rather than plastic. We've got various local grocers, Shop Zero, Nude Food, Metro Organics. They source seasonally and locally produced food, and the money goes back into the community. And these brands are very considerate about their plastic waste. From a fashion perspective, we have everything from jewelry to luggage to sunglasses to computer cases to beautiful online pre-loved clothing brands that we can choose from, as well as eateries. A lot of restaurants and cafes are coming on board, being concerned about local seasonal ingredients, being more plant-based, moving towards circularity. So there's a lot to choose from. And I think to end off with, I just need to remind everyone that whatever you buy is always going to have some impact. The point is that we need to buy less. But if we are going to buy, to be a little bit more smart and savvy about what we can buy. If it comes in packaging of any sort, try and keep things in the system for as long as you can. When it comes to good brands that are doing the right thing, reward them, support them, share them, and be loyal. And those who are greenwashing, call them out, but in a nice way. Always give them the benefit of the doubt. As we know, there's a lot of misinformation. They might not be doing it on purpose. But if you've spoken to them, you've had that conversation, and they're still not willing to budge, absolutely go in hard. So that's it from me. Over and out. Back to Cara. Thank you for listening and your patience.
Thank you so much. Very interesting also, a lot of food for thought. So I've been answering a few questions in the background. A lot of people asking who they can contact for support, and a lot of those I've responded to, but I've also put in the chat the details of everyone who is on the panel. There is one, and I'd like to open the floor for further questions. If you haven't put any questions in the Q&A box, we have 12 minutes for a Q&A. There is one question that hasn't been answered yet from Ridwana. She says, does anyone on the panel have any information on the Checkers Little Shop recycling claims? I personally don't. I'm not sure if anyone else on the panel has any input on that. I actually had to look it up because I hadn't seen it. It's basically those little items that you get when you do your shops at Checkers, and they are claiming, if I'm not mistaken, to be made from recycled material. Anthea, have you heard anything about that? Otherwise, I'm not sure.
No, I haven't.
Okay. All right.
I think also when products are claiming that they are made from recycled material, I think that's great if they really are. I think it's also important, though, to understand what do we do with it once we've used it? Can we then resend it to the recycling or not? Otherwise, the buck stops right there.
Okay, thank you. Danielle said yes from fridges.
Thanks,
I
Danielle.
just wanted to comment on the little shop toy thing. They give you cards with it and says it's from fridges, recycled from fridges. So it's a very good question, and I think I think we should get more information on that, because my husband got a lot of these things, and I'm like, what are we going to do with it afterwards? So I think I'm also going to research that a bit more. Thanks.
Thank you. Shane, can you maybe unmute Redwana if she wants to add anything else to that conversation?
Hi, thank you very much for giving me the chance to talk. I am concerned about Checkers' claims with the little shop. I think firstly, it's completely useless pieces of plastic. I do get that it's made from recycled items. I was checking on their website and I've been trying to find all the information that I can for it. But made from recycled items doesn't necessarily mean that there's a waste stream that would be willing to collect those items here. And if we look at they had those little pop sticker things a while back that used to go onto fridges and car windows and that sort of thing. They had also made claims, I don't know if it was Checkers, I can't really remember, but that it was also claims about it being recycled. It's great to say that it's recycled, but are people going to firstly be willing to pop those into recycling, first of all? Once their kids are done with it. And second of all is that since it seems to have stickers and printed stickers, for example, on the items, doesn't that make it less desirable for the waste pickers to collect, because that's it's an added step for them to have to maybe separate the stickers, for example, on these tiny little minute things. It's very useless to me. But anyway, thank you for giving me a chance to say my piece.
Pleasure. I think also, if it says it's made from fridges, for example, with what plastic is that? From which part of the fridge? So it talks to exactly what you and Dione spoke about where to next. It's all very well that it's made from recycled material, but yeah, what happens afterwards? A comment from Monique. Hi, Monique. Is a difficult but important challenge for consumers is to say no to freebies, which I agree with. Monique.
Hi, Shane. Hi, Cara. Thanks. I just say that because I think even with those toys, I don't shop at Checkers, but I think they're promotional, or so they kind of get given out, whether you have kids or not, you take them or you find someone to give them to. They're also so small, whether they really get picked up for recycling, if they are recyclable is a thing. But I also say it from, my thing is often with plastic bags. So obviously you pay for the carrier ones, but the free ones that they like to put your jik in or whatever, meat products in, I try and say no to those too. But it's sometimes a challenge because the cashiers also think they're doing you a favor, and you kind of want to avoid the plastic, and it really is difficult. But I think it's an important thing where we also, just because it's free, we also actually say no to that and realize that that is also consuming possibly what we do not need.
Thank you, Monique.
Can I add to that? So Monique, you really hit the nail on the head there, because it is made so easy for consumers. It's accessible and it's free and it's put in front of your face, and you then believe that it's the most obvious alternative. So the really good news is with those little plastic barrier bags, they're called, there is the plastic pact has been signed earlier on. So that is with Green Cape and a whole lot of retailers across the country where they have actually signed a clause saying that they are moving away from those barrier bags. So slowly but surely we won't see them anymore, which is really exciting. However, we've got to get around the idea that they are needed for keeping chicken in and for keeping our detergents in. But yes, when it's free, it's not always the best option in this regard.
Yeah, the cashiers always look at me like I'm a crazy person when I'm like, the jik is not going to spill out of the container.
I'll carry it in my hand. It's okay.
Yeah. It was like you're a crazy person. Then there's a question from Ashley. Why aren't there are more local places that produce biodegradable packaging like hemp and banana leaves, etc.? So thank you, Ashley. And Shane, if you could just unmute Ashley, I'm going to respond, but if anyone else wants to talk, just put up your hand. I think this is becoming more of a conversation, which is great. When it comes to biodegradable packaging, it's a little bit tricky. I think a lot of people look at biodegradable packaging and things like PLA, like Dione spoke about, as kind of the silver bullet to end plastic pollution. But I think what's really important to realize is that, like plastic packaging, like paper packaging, like glass packaging, it needs to have a system in place in which there is a demand for that end-use product or a way to dispose of it responsibly. So I think your question about hemp or banana leaves, etc. I don't know the answer to why there aren't more local producers, but what I can say is that I would be not concerned, but having the production of those sorts of items, there needs to be a lot of education that goes with it. And I think that on a whole, a lot of consumers in South Africa aren't yet composting at home, which means that then there needs to be a big drive to make sure that that type of packaging goes to a industrial composting facility where there needs to be certain microorganisms, certain heat, and certain light in order for that packaging to actually break down. I think what we've seen is that there's also propensity for littering when it comes to biodegradable and compostable packaging. A lot of people think that if they just throw it out their window, it will just biodegrade, which isn't the case. A banana peel is not the same as a biodegradable bottle or tub or tray or something like that. So I don't know if you want to say anything to that, or if anyone else is on the panel has any input. Anthea, maybe from your point of view, do you see a lot of biodegradable packaging in the recycling stream? And like I know, for example, PLA looks exactly like PET. And if PLA does get into the recycling stream, it can actually clog up the recycling system. So maybe your input on that.
Yes, we have definitely seen a lot more of the PLA or the lookalike PET bottles, etc. And it is causing a little bit of havoc, especially when people still want a return or a rebate on that recycling, when in fact it's actually not PET. So it does make things difficult, and it's very difficult to tell the difference between the two. So we often have Q&As or little toolbox talks with our staff, going over new packaging, going over what is out there, what the buyers do not and do want. But yeah, things are getting a little bit complicated. And also composters don't necessarily want to just take anything. So even if we did divert it to a composter, they want to see the stats. They want to see the statistics on how long does it take to compost, where are your tests, your results from your trials. They don't want to be the guinea pigs. They want you to have done all that, not us, but the brand owners to have done all that. So there's a lot of back and forth.
And then from my side as well, it's a perfect example how you have consumers who are wanting to do the right thing and then reaching out for something that says biodegradable or PLA, but not necessarily understanding that there's even an avenue that it's going to land up in. And it's also, you've got restaurants and they want to come in and they want to do the right thing. They don't want to be responsible for all the plastic straws, for example. So they invest quite heavily in then moving towards bio straws. But the ultimate point is when this stuff lands up in the ocean, it's still going to behave exactly the same way as plastic. So I think there's always a big caution around that. It's definitely not the answer currently, while we still have the infrastructure issues at hand.
Okay, thank you. And there's just one more comment from Henrietta about eco bricks, and then I'm going to close the session just to respect everybody's time. She said, I wash my plastic wraps like meat packaging, dry it and stuff it into 2-liter bottles like an eco brick. It makes me feel I do something with the plastic. Thank you for your comment. From a Petco point of view, we encourage those 2-liter bottles to be recycled. So I understand that a lot of that plastic is not recyclable, and things like chip packets and chocolate wrappers, for example, it's good that they don't escape into the environment, but we would encourage you to put it into bottles that are not high in value in terms of PET. So for example, clear and light blue bottles are very high in value and they can be recycled into new bottles. So that's just my comment on that. And I see Anthea also has a point. No.
Yes, I have to agree with you there, that, you know, in as much as we would love EcoBricks to save the world, they're not able to do so. So just a little bit of caution. We actually do a lot of the collections for the Imagined Earth reverse vending machines, and we often get the EcoBricks in the machines, and literally we actually cut it open, take everything out, and put the plastic bottle with the recycling. We just don't have enough bowls for all those EcoBricks that people are really trying to do the right thing with. But it's great that the sentiment is there that, you know, we can do better.
Perfect. Sorry, I just see that Sivuyile has his hand up. I just want to give him the opportunity because I think I missed it.
Good day to the panel. First, I will welcome the opportunity to be given to us, people that are having interest in recycling, hoping that it is not the first and it's not the last seminar that we'll be getting up onto, where we'll be getting thorough information and enlightenment on recycling as emerging people that are having interest in recycling and PT at large. My question would be one, is that some of us are having small particular. We are only now starting with collection. Is there no way that maybe we are having a database of all places where we can sell the product that we are collecting? Or even the market value, what is the market value? Maybe there's a company in Joburg or in Durban that is buying this.
Yeah, we do have that on our website. I'm going to put my email address in here, and I will send you the link. We aren't able to provide prices because that's depending on the different buyback centers. But I will send you the information to the list. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Okay. Cool. Well, thank you. Just once again to the panelists for your time, for your effort. I think everyone here has learned a lot. The 28 people that are left. Sorry, we've gone a bit over, but I like to give everyone a chance to say what they need to say. So, yeah, thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who attended. And hopefully you'll be able to do another one of these sessions soon to continue the learning journey together. Have a good day, everyone.